Hello, guys. We are back. Oh my God. Let's see if we can do something more productive than yesterday, like trying to fight the X-Gen. That's the cool thing about those classes, right? The cool thing or the part that sucks is that everything is like unplanned, I guess. It's like it's not like I have like a whole plan. It's like I just have like a rough sketch of what I'm going to be talking about, but sometimes it changes and I never know what's going to happen, so that's very risky, on one hand, because some people, when they post those classes online, it's normally like pre-recorded, and they just filter everything that's wrong and then re-record stuff to make everything perfect, and this one is just pretty raw. But that's important, I think. It's like, because people have to realize that things are buggy, and sometimes we get in trouble, and then we just like figure different ways to actually resolve the problems later. So let's talk about the stuff that I did since yesterday. So I'm doing some research here about this stuff, and I think, like, for my character here, because I don't want to have to deal with days and days of like actually uh, tweaking those guides to actually connect perfectly to the scalp, right, to make sure everything is working. So I did what I said I would do yesterday. I basically created just those little caps around here. So basically, like, it's two little polygons like that, just like little caps like that. And then I created a new description for those guys, and I call it braids, basically. So you see, like, the little hairs in there are gonna appear, disappear. So that's basically what I did. And then for the hairs themselves, like, to create the braided, I just did exactly what we did yesterday, just more carefully. It's like I decided to actually do a little bit more poking around with the follicles. So for example, if I click this guy here, what I did actually with the hair system, let's see, follicle 1, follicle 2. So for the clump and everything here, so what I did, I added more subsegments so I could get like a nicer braid to happen, right? So 120. And then I actually cranked this one from 1 to 2.7. So I actually got bigger around that area. But then the curve, you see what I did here? I actually funneled this into a smaller part in there, because by default, this looks like this. So it's like it's more flared out around here, right, at the base. So I actually made it a little bit thinner in there, because my plan is to actually try to merge the hair I have and somehow hide it and just connect it, kind of like make kind of like an invisible thing, right? So I'm just like funneling a little bit like that. But this curve here is pretty cool. It's like you can tweak it, and making the braid look just like the way you want. And when I pick the thickness around this area here, it's because I'm taking into account this. Check this out. So I have my hair in here, and I have my guides, right? So if I turn on the guides in here, because now I just have those guides visible. Before I continue here, so to create those guides in here, what I did, I actually turned the head live like I did yesterday, right? And then without too much trouble, I was actually just able to actually draw right against the surface. So I did draw those lines, a bunch of them manually, maybe like 12 or something like that, manually, and completely glued to the head, like snapped to the surface, right? And then once I had all of them in place, I actually, it's like I had enough that I thought it would cover the whole area. I actually selected all the curves and I duplicated them and I mirror everything to the other side. So I had like a base to start from, right? And then from that point on, I did exactly what I did yesterday, which was to transform them into guides in here. And then once they're guides, I was able to just sculpt them away from the surface. So before, they're like glued to the surface, and then with the sculpt ball, you just like move them away. And then I brought them all into this point right here. And then I created some in-betweens in there. And because the interpolation was on, it was able to interpolate everything and go fairly to the right spot. Some of them I had to actually manually put them towards that little hole in there. And then every time I was doing one of them and I thought that was already in a good spot, I would freeze the curves, and then I would add a new one and I would tweak that one without the being frozen, right? So it would affect just that one. And then once it was in a good spot, I would freeze it again, create a brand new one. And I did this many times, it's like, so every time I felt that something was already in a good place, to avoid like any accident, I just like would freeze everything and just deal with one at a time. So at this point, I have more curves in this side than I had at this side here. So I still have to add more of them, especially around here, close to the sideburns, because around here I already have some of them in there, right? So with that in mind, so I had my hair in here, and then I just made it, you know, it's like just follow those guides. So if I turn on the guides in here, you're gonna see them following into that direction, right there, right? So basically it's pretty simple. And there's some areas I need to adjust to here. For example, like this area here has a problem. This hair here is crossing my mask. I'm gonna show you what I did. I painted a mask actually. So either I can bring this hair to the other side, or in ZBrush I can paint my mask to come a little bit forward like that, and just like have this hair within the other region. I was actually using some regions to split the hair correctly. So I'm gonna show you this as well. So from this point on, now that I had this stuff, I added a noise, and then I added a secondary noise. So let's see what it's gonna do. It's calculating. Yeah. So many hairs. I have like a lot of subdivisions because they're pretty long. Still thinking about it. Come on, ZBrush. Oh, ZBrush, Maya. Jesus Christ, like this noise is taking a long time. I can hear in my headphones like the little processing power going on. I hope it didn't freeze. It might actually. My head frozen. Oh, that's a good start. No, okay. So I finally computed. So I have some noise in here, and the noise parameters I have at this point, it look like this. It's not super fancy. So magnitude, frequency, nothing fancy. And then to preserve the length. Just to add a little bit more of this, you know, it's like they kind of crisscross a little bit more, and they become more even. Because if you don't have them, you get like those, it's almost like those flat surfaces that are created by some of them interpolating. But once you have a noise, it actually basically integrates everything and becomes a single thing, right? So once I have that, I added another noise. This one is for the flyaways, just like I did yesterday. So this one here, let's see if it's gonna take forever as well. Yeah, it's just a lot of hair. Okay, so got the flyaways in there. I don't know if you guys can see. And then this one here, I added the mask, right? Like for the modifier here, for the noise modifier. And the mask, I did all this stuff I did yesterday. So like I cranked the threshold, the amplitude, and then using a very high frequency at 300, and also tweaking my color balance to 2 instead of 1, so cranking it to 2. And then that way I was able to get like those nice flyaways. They're kind of messy around here, but they're kind of cool when you render, you know? And they are just messy enough to break up the profile right there. And I also did some renders. Let me show you this. So let's see if I can bring up some renders here. So this one, I render with those parameters. So basically like that's what I have at this point. It's rough around here. I don't have like a, you know, it's like the sideburns area groomed yet. I don't have like a blend around here in the front. Those guys here are gonna have to shave a little bit of them in there. But I don't have any like density mask applied just yet. So it's just like very pure, you know, grooming there. And then for the color, I'm gonna show you what I did with the color. You see like there's some whites, and then there's some of them starting to get white, right? Like when the hair is black and then it starts getting white, it's basically like it loses melanin, right? And as it loses melanin, it gets a little bit more yellow, and then all the way to become white, right? So that's all calculated by Arnold when we render. And then here's another angle. So you see some whites in there. Starting to look cool, like there's some flyaways in there, right? And then this one here is from the top where I have that problem I mentioned. So there's one line in here that's crossing, and then that one I'm gonna have to try to fix it. Either I bring the whole spline to the other side, which maybe I'm gonna do that, or I have to tweak my mask. So for the mask, I'm going to show you what I'm doing. So by default, if you don't have a mask assigned, let's see if I can show you the difference in here. So let's just hide the curves first. Let's have it like this. That's where I have my problem right there, right? So if you click in the guide itself, when you create the guides, not the top node of the guide here after you add the curves, right? But just the guide itself, the modifier. If you click on it, and if you look down here, you're gonna see that there is a use region map. See that thing in there? And there's a map that's plugged in here now. If I click this map, the map looks like this. I'm gonna show you in ZBrush as well. It's just like two colors, right? And the important thing here is to actually make sure that you have the two colors being like primary colors. So it's like pure blue, pure red, pure yellow, whatever it is. You know, it's like it has to be like a kind of like a primary color in Maya. Otherwise, it doesn't quite work. So I'm gonna show you how this is plugged here. So like under the guides, all you have to do once you have painted like two colors like that, you just plug the region map in here. And then XGen is gonna try to approximate. So for example, like if you have like some curves closer or within that area that was painted, it's gonna really consider that yeah, I have to follow those. Because right in the middle here, if you watch my class of July, I wasn't using the region mask in maps, and I was trying to actually force my way. So I was getting a ton of hairs in here. And with this technique here, you don't need to add too much, you know, it's like, because this really forces them to go into a direction or the other one, kind of splits right in the middle. So the only one is really that one in there. Again, I can actually paint it in there, or I can just move that curve all the way around. So in ZBrush, what I did, I created this mask in here. And then if you look at the color itself, it's basically, you know, it's like if you grab it here, it's like it's a pure green 255, pure red 255. So basically like it has to be a pure color, right? And then obviously like right in the middle here, you see I added some imperfections in there. You can even do like more imperfections. That little area that I mentioned, maybe I can just like paint a little bit more green in here and just like include that curve into it. But it's hard for me to know what it is because I mean, like I'm not looking at the Maya interface right now. So I think I'm gonna just like move that curve all the way to the other side and consider that done. So so basically this stuff here, you can find there's in the Maya help, because like the thing that's interesting about the XGen interactive, it's that interactive is fairly new. It's there for a couple of years, I think, but it was so buggy that people didn't even bother to use it. And then it was just a core. So most of the tutorials you're gonna find on YouTube and all those places is just like core, you know? And people don't talk too much about the, there's a couple of like, you know, it's like nice ones for interactive, but most of this stuff, the most complex grooms you see is mostly like using the core. But when you look at this stuff here, for example, like in the Maya manual, they even mention here, region maps work the same way for interactive grooming guide modifiers, because this is basically like you're talking about the you know, it's like the core, right? But they are saying here that works the same for the guide. And then it's in fact, like if you start like working more and more with interactive, you're gonna see that there are a lot of stuff that you can do in the core that you can also do in the interactive, maybe even everything, I don't know. But it's just like a different way to do it, you know? Instead of like using some equations and stuff, you can actually just plug maps. There's like a more artistic way to do it, you know? It's like plug the noise maps and create stuff. But for, in this case here, is the same way that works, you know? So if you have those primary colors in there very well defined, basically like those chunks gonna follow that structure. So if you have like some guides within that area, so it's gonna be basically like respecting the interpolation just within those areas, which is really cool. So that's why you can use much less curves now and get all the directions going perfectly, right? And it prevents like a problem that happens a lot if you're trying to split something in the middle like this. very often you're gonna get like some hairs going straight down. So they're gonna go all the way across from here to here because it gets completely lost. It doesn't know where to interpolate. So with this, you basically like you force everything to interpolate. And it's, I still get that problem, but it's much minor, much smaller this way, because it's really forcing things in a way that actually works better. So and then that's basically what I did since yesterday. Again, let's see. In terms of the shader, still getting there, but I'm gonna show you what I did with the to create like the whites in here. And then obviously you're gonna be the one deciding how much more of those whites you want to introduce if you're modeling someone like it's a very old person or whatever, right? But in my case, I think it's a good balance between like the dark and it's starting to go, darker in there, wider. So I think it's a good balance the way it is. I think you're gonna keep kind of like that. So what I did for the color was this. So if I click on this one, I have my shader assigned. Let's go all the way here. And then for the shader itself, I actually plugged a map inside of melanin. A couple of other things I did, like the roughness, I think by default, it's around like 200 something. And by default, the index of refraction is like 155, I believe. So it's really shiny. The hair is very healthy and shiny by default. But I just thought like it would look cooler if it was a little bit more matte like that, So you can see there's a little bit of some highlights in there, but it's kind of like a dry hair, right? And I think that helps to combine with that feeling of the noise that was assigned to the hair. It gives this impression that something that's a little bit more, it's like more dry or something, It's like it has a different quality to it. So so let's see about the color here. So I kept the base at 1, the base color at black, basically, right? Didn't change that. The melanin redness, I turned just a tiny little bit of it. And then the randomize, this one actually is going to randomize, obviously, like from black to white, but it's not going to give you like this very precise, it's like a super white single hairs and stuff. So to do that, I plug a map in the melanin here. And this map here is actually a noise, the same one I always use, right? The noise from Maya. Same thing, I switched to Perlin noise. And those are the parameters I'm using. I'm using like threshold that's 0.151, amplitude at 1, ratio 0.707, frequency ratio 2. And then here, the frequency I'm cranking all the way to 300. So I want the noise to be very, very tiny because I want it to hit just like one at a time, those hairs in there, instead of like getting a bundle of hair and making that entire bundle white. I wanted to pick like a random hair in the middle and just turn that single one white. So that's why I have a lot of frequency in there. And then again, like for the color balance, I'm switching the alpha as luminous, and then I'm cranking here and even added a negative offset, negative 0.5 and then positive 2. And that way, obviously, when I was doing those things here, I had my my render on the side, and then although it's not like a GPU render, if you basically like select just a tiny part, right? Like if you have just a tiny part selected like this, right? You can just like monitor that one and see how it's actually creating the shader in there for you and adding the whites and stuff like that. So that's what I did. It's like in an area like this, I had just like a small area. I was like, okay, so I'm getting too many whites right now. So let's play with those parameters here. And then I was playing with the slides until I got just a few of them white, and then a lot of them kind of yellow, and then a lot of them black underneath, right? So it creates this kind of tone that I like in there. So that's basically what I did when it comes to the hair to this point. And my challenge now is to actually try to first like create the braids to make them look like something, right? And the second one is to actually blend those things in here. So I think what I'm gonna do today as an experiment, I did a little render before for those guys when I created them, but they are not looking right, so I destroyed them and now I have them in there. It's yet to be created as XGen. So let's do a little bit of that. And I wanna do as well like a little sculpting in the eyelids if we have the time, because I have to show you what I normally do for the eyelids to make sure that it integrates with the eyeballs nicely. And then, another thing I did yesterday before I go forward, I actually fixed that dull look of the top eyelashes, so they look more like this now. And that was basically by doing a bunch of, not a bunch, but like 2 clumps. So like the first one, in terms of parameters, looks like this. Instead of clumping positively, he actually clumps outwards, right? Like, so basically like, you know, when you are clumping here, he actually goes in and finds the next one, right? But in this case here, I'm going like the opposite direction. And then I'm doing the same with the next one, with another clump underneath, also negative, right? And then there is one thing you can do here, which I did. You can actually turn on, create like a sculpt modifier. And then you can go with this guy here, which is the clump brush, right? And then you can make it very tiny, actually. You can make it very tiny like that. And then if you like to clump some of them, you can just, you know, go in between those two and just like pull them together like that, right? So it's very selective. So I have to do a pass that, you know, looks more interesting in there. But that's basically what I was planning to do. Instead of like making the clump do everything automatically for me, I actually do the negative clump just to spread them out. And now if I find some of them a little closer, I can do my own clumping by hand because, you know, it's more precise to do that way. So yeah, that's basically what I did for it. Another tip in there. Let's go back here. So eyelashes, eyebrows, main hair. So let's play with the main hair first. So what I have for the main hair, if I turn off the hair itself, right, and I turn on just my curves, now I have my curves in there, which are basically the guides, right, guiding everything. So what we can try to do, let's see if that's gonna work. Let's see if I click this edit in here for the curves themselves, and I click this node. There is a brush in here we didn't use yet. That's the cut tool, this guy here. And this one, you can literally cut stuff, right? So if I go to those guides, and if I do this, see, it cuts the entire thing, right? So I could potentially, maybe I can leave like an area of overlapping here, something like that. But make them short enough so they actually don't destroy the rest of the stuff I have in there. Let's see if this is has a mask in here. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's masked. So not masked, but frozen. So I'm just unfreeze those guys. I'm gonna do the same with this side. So I'm gonna cut them. Some of them are not even like in the correct spot. I can actually do that later. I'm just gonna clump like in a similar length. Something around here. And then I can just get some of them. Start off my symmetry. Let's just get some of them closer together here. I want to see if I can do something, you know, like that I can actually get away with by mixing those two different things. And my plan is to do this. It's basically like to find out where, for example, one of those 3 branches here is actually connecting in there. And then maybe like create like 3 different selections for this bundle in here as well. And then one by one, just like really drive them into a rotation that looks very similar to what I have in there, and try to use some overlap to create some kind of integration. I don't know if it's gonna work, you know, but I think even if it doesn't work to look natural without disguising it, then I can still use a little piece, you know, it's like a hair piece in there, and then really cheat it, right? So because that way I can do it much faster than, you know, trying to do the whole thing all the way to, that's gonna be another challenge for later, but I wanna get this guy in a spot that looks a little bit more complete since this is the last week, right? So let's check this out. Let's see what we can do with this. So let's turn this off. Let's turn on the hair again. Let's see how it looks like now that I clipped. I take a little bit to recalculate all this stuff, I guess. I want to have that visual reference in there. And one thing, okay, so now it's shorter. Still a little messy, right? But the thing is, like, I can create like either I tweak the curves themselves, or I can just like tweak the hair later on. But because it doesn't seem like it's following exactly, look, it's kind of going that way. I think I need some more underneath in here to prevent that problem in there that's kind of like intersecting with the neck, but I can do that later. I think the most important thing is to actually have a nice visual reference for the mass of the hair, something like this, you know, something I can know, for example, like, okay, should I leave like less forehead or more, you know, so I can actually play with this. I actually like the fact that it's like very receded in here, looks like an older person. I just want to fill up this area a little bit more later. But we can talk about that as well, like add maybe like some blending hair in there. Let's see how much stuff we can squeeze today. But for now, let's just like keep this the way it is. And then later we're gonna tweak this area here, either manually by creating a sculpt modifier under the main hair itself instead of the curves, and just like forcing them down, or adding more of those curves so I can actually, you know, it's like use more guides to actually prevent that problem. So let's go to the braids and let's see what we can do. Now that I have them fairly in place, I like the position in there, I like the thickness. Maybe I can make slightly thicker. Let's see, the follicle, not follicle, but the hair is it follicle? Yeah, I think it, let's see. Under my hair system, clump and hairstyle. Jesus, I hate this tab here. Okay, so let's see, let's just bring this clump width a little bit wider than what I have. And then here, gonna just bring it to smaller. Something like that. And then let's see how much is fading into something smaller in there. Maybe a little bit thicker. So it looks like he has a ton of hair. Otherwise, it's the hair base, like as it starts like getting smaller and smaller, that means like he has shorter and shorter hair, right? So some of them are starting to disappear until it becomes something that's a little thinner. But okay, so at this point, I think I like the thickness. I like them pretty thick in there. Let's see. Maybe a little bit less. Let's see. I think it's okay around here. So I'm gonna do the same thing we did yesterday. Now that I have this in place, I'm gonna collect my PFX hair, Paint Effects hair, and I'm gonna generate those curves. So modify, convert, and then we're gonna do Paint Effects to curves. Curves or to nerves? To curves, right? Curves or nerves? I forgot. I think it's curves. So let's see, curves. Yeah, those guys here. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna select all the curves right there. I'm gonna switch back here to my braids, which is basically like that tiny little piece that I showed you guys before. This one here with the tiny hairs, right? Like the little cap. So under that, I'm gonna click, oh, I don't have my, I don't have any guides in here yet. So let's just create it first. So that's my braids in here, that little piece with the little hair. And I believe the amount I used was, let's see if I can select it. The amount I used was this. So I used like 1,500 basically for, 1,500 for each one. So if I select both, I get like 3,000. So basically like I have 1,500 or 1,500 in each one of those bundles. That's basically what I used. So let's look at them again. So under braids in here, I don't need to select anything. Just gonna click on it, and then I'm gonna add a modifier guide. So I have my guide in there now. So we finally have access to the stuff we need around here, right? So let's go back and select the curves, all of them. Right there. And then let's see what we can do with the braids. So control click the guide, and I'm gonna use the selected curves as guide. No links to anything. So I got them in there. Let's see. And then let's hide some of this stuff. First, we are not gonna need all this crap in here that's coming like from paint effects. So I'm gonna hide the paint effects, gonna hide the curves themselves, and this should be all XGen now. So for the guides, I can actually hide the curves as well, right? And then let's just make sure that we have enough subdivisions in here. So for the guides, I should have enough subdivisions. I think the guides should look very smooth, which they do. But when it comes to the hair itself, let's see how many steps we have. So braids base, 250. I hope that's what's doing. Let's rebuild at 250. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I think that's about it. And then the thing is, like, it's not following very closely, right? Like, it's a little bit loose in there. I don't know if it's because the size of the little piece I had is a little bit smaller than the base of it. But I wish it was a little bit closer, following closer the you know, the guys themselves. Let's see if we can find anything here to help. Yeah, I don't have a region mask. Maybe I can, that's another thing that would be interesting to test as well. You know, it's like, what if I had like region masks, right? Like for the 3 strands in here. So that would make like a, if I could, for example, yeah, split them a little better at the base. Maybe I could make the blend work faster or better, but I don't know. Maybe I could try that later. Let's see what this is doing here. So the guide, mask magnitude, what does the magnitude do? So it's like too much. It'd be nice if actually it was following closer. That, in that case, it's just gonna get a little messy. Let's see, selected. Never tried too much stuff here. I just wish there was a way to actually snap it closer to the guys that I have. It seems like, yeah, blend's not gonna work. Let's see, work negatives here. Oh man, I'm gonna crash this thing. Yeah, it's not gonna do anything. All right, let's deal with that the way it is. And then I figured it out later how to do that. Because it's definitely not like the perfect shape that's coming in the curves, right? It looks like it could have a better shape overall. But let's see how it renders. I think if we add like a couple of nodes in there, you might get away with it. And meanwhile, I'm gonna try to figure it out later. So around here, it's where I want to start blending things, but you see, like, it's not like the transition is not great because, like I said, this part here is pretty messy. But then hopefully you're going to be able to do a better job with that. The color of the hair is already matching this one, but I don't have like a noise node that matches it. So let's see if I can add some of those and see if that helps. So under braids, I'm going to add a noise modifier. Starting to get slow again. Okay, so let's see in terms of the parameters I have in here. So let's see, the other noise I had 277, and this for magnitude, let's just duplicate that. So this one, and then 0.277, something like that. And then I have some, the flyaways I can actually do later. See, like those flyaways here, they're kind of broken. Some of them were square. So sometimes if that happens, it might be because of the base here, like the main hair base. Let's see, where's the base? Right here, main hair base. I have to actually rebuild them. I have like 200 for the CV count. I might have to actually do more of that, but I'm gonna just rebuild with 200 and see if it improves a little bit to try to get rid of the squares in here. It has to calculate through the 2 noises, so it might take a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, it's starting to get like all like jagged in there. So sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's nice to just like rebuild. If it doesn't do it, then I might experiment with like a higher count, but it's already super heavy with that. So I have to see, you know. That's the thing about XGen, right? Like it's very flexible. Yeah, it didn't resolve the problem. It's probably coming from one of those noises in here. Maybe this one here. Yeah, that's the one. So that's the one that's causing most of the trouble. It's the exaggerated flyaways that I have. So that one I might have to actually do a little tweak in the mask and then maybe add some more subdivisions. Otherwise, this square stuff here is not going to fly. But around here is working very nicely. Yeah, those guys here are working nicely. It's just that area. And then if nothing else works, I can actually, you know, just do like some manual work in there and remove. But definitely this stuff is pretty messy. Maybe it's the fact that I actually shrank some of this, you know, and then you basically compressed everything. It was a longer hair before. Then you compressed everything. Maybe the way to go is to actually do a combination of rebuilding maybe the curves themselves and then rebuilding the hair. But I'm gonna have to experiment with it. So let's see if we render this thing, if something helps. Let's turn that off and see how bad it looks. If it's gonna look like braids at all. I wish it was a little bit more, had a little bit more of noise in there. It doesn't seem like the noise is showing up unless I have a different shader. So let's check it out. So main hair, let's grab this one. And then I'm gonna make sure that we have the same assigned to the braids. Yeah, apparently it's the same. Let's see how it renders. This guy here. It was thinner before the first test I did. But yeah, it's definitely not following perfectly. So I have to figure it out if I do like maybe like a 3-color mask at that little disc to force it to actually follow, you know, the curves and everything. Or maybe I can just, let's see, oh, interesting. It's getting some whites in there. Oh, it's actually rendering some of the stuff from the XGen as well. Not XGen, from the in hair, I believe. I think this is like some of this stuff is actually paint effects. Look at that. That's so weird. It was actually looking nicer. Like the thickness was better from the paint effects. I might have to figure it out. So let's see if some of that stuff, let's see if I delete them. Although I didn't want to delete it. Let's see, hair system, follicle, hair. Let's see if it's still gonna be there when I render. Yeah, it's coming from somewhere. It's definitely not coming from the XGen. It's from something else. It's probably from the paint effects. Interesting. Unless it's that problem that we normally have, right, with XGen not refreshing it. So let's try to just do, just for the sake of it, update full scene. I had like all kinds of problems like dealing with the stuff yesterday. Like it was that whole thing about not refreshing, you know. So I was actually sculpting some stuff, was not responding. I was like, oh, I know what's going on. So I had to save the file, reopen. Right before the class, I was doing some tests and just like converting, creating the paint effects from the, you know, from a single curve and stuff. And twice it crashed pretty badly. Maya crashed, gave me the message like saving the file, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I even have it here, look. Recover. So basically like when Maya auto saves this stuff, what I normally do right after Maya saves it, I just right click and then I drag and drop and then create a copy of that and rename to something else, because Maya normally gets rid of those things over time. And then I want to make sure it doesn't delete, you know, the file that I created in there. So sometimes I do that just as a little safe backup. Okay, let's see if that one, yeah. Okay, so it was the case that was the freaking refresh, as you can tell, because they're disappearing now. So let's see. All right, well, that works. So now we can have a better idea about it. Let's isolate just one area here. kind of transition in there. And make sure that that I'm not using depth of field. That would really suck. No, no depth of field. It's just calculating. Okay. Yeah, you see, like the curves are perfect, right? Like the braids coming from the curves is pretty perfect, but because it's not following too closely, they're kind of like getting a little messy, and it's not like showing as a natural. You know, it's like basically like the crisscrossing thing of the braids. It's not like following the curves too closely. I think it's a matter to actually figure it out, that disc, and make sure that the disc matches the size of the root fairly well, so you can actually follow them. Because otherwise, I think it's going to get a little confused. I think I have a little bit different this size, and then it's not creating like a clean braid, right? It's kind of like messy. Yeah, I think that's the case. Yeah, the quality of the hair definitely is going to work. It's just a matter of like making sure that the braids, they read tighter. They're super loose and interpenetrating each other. And around here, we're going to see the problems already, and we're going to see how bad it is. So I can actually try to later make this area here a little bit softer. But before I do that, I'm going to actually have to figure it out, like the braids, how to make the, you know, it's like do a better job so they can follow the curves closely to avoid this problem in there. Definitely see the potential of it. It's just like a matter of like, you know, improving that starting point. And that stuff in there, you can see there's an artifact right here. That's very typical of the stuff that you need to rebuild the curves, you know, in order to get rid of the stuff. Sometimes it's the noise that's on top of it. And sometimes like, yeah, it's like the curve has to be basically like recreated. And you can also smooth things out as well. There is a smooth brush in there. You can come with the smooth here in this area, just like smooth things out a little bit, and then rebuild the curves later so you can get rid of this weird stuff like that. Yeah, the idea is good. I think the shader looks good. It's just that, yeah, the quality of the braid is not it's not working, and it's not like the solution is different from what Roger posted. I mean, like it's going to be very similar because in terms of the curves themselves, they look like they're in a good place. It's just you see, like they are very different in terms of volume than what I have going on in there. So it's not the problem of generating the curves, it's the problem of making sure that everything follows it. Let's just turn off the hair in here and see where it's starting. Yeah, you see, like it's forcing into that little piece in there. Maybe that piece would have to be bigger, so we could actually start with more guides, something like that. Or I'm gonna have to try that stuff, you know, that I mentioned, like paint a few masks, but I would have to identify where those guys are going first. Yeah, but the braids, they look very nice here if it wasn't for that problem. Yeah, looks like it's totally gonna work. It's just a matter of like, yeah, they're totally going inside and out in there. It's a nice braid. Okay, so, well, I'm gonna have to deal with that later is the next challenge, right? Like, but in terms of what I want is like to check how difficult this area is gonna be to blend, and I think it's gonna work out, but I have to figure out first the braids. Important thing for me is actually be happy with the quality of the hair, and I think that's a good starting point. What we can do here, just like to show you guys how I approach this stuff, is to create another area and create some blendings. You know, it's like between the thinner hair and the thick hair, and also maybe create another area here, because normally this area I create like a separate description just for the sideburns. In the case of Rick Baker, it was like hair and then sideburns and then beard. And then the beard would come into here, and then the mustache was separate. So basically like the beard and the mustache were separate, and then the goatee was separate as well. And then this was separated. So you have a lot of control that way. So maybe we can do a little bit of both. Like we can add some sideburns, and then we can also add the blending in there, because the braid's gonna be a little bit of a project, as you can tell, but I have an idea about it already. Let's turn that off. Keep my little pieces there. And so let's do create a masking here. Actually, let's just like show the hair first, so I know what I'm painting here. And then I'm gonna mask this area around here, like pretty close to the hair. And I'm gonna create some blending in there. So let's just do the symmetry first. So topology symmetry. Same deal, click that one. And then let's expand this one here, a little bit bigger. And then let's create a mask. It's gonna be kind of like part within the hair and part outside of the hair like that. I can even make a little bit bigger like that. And I'm gonna draw right at the line. So anything I get from that point is a blending. So around here, can even go a little bigger. Let's do that. And we can use the peach fuzz as well to do this, you know. At this point here, I'm gonna be creating a different description just for that specific hair. But if you watch like some of the previous classes, I also do sometimes just like use the peach fuzz and just like groom them to grow them, and then use that as blending. But in this case here, I'm just gonna use this, guys. I'm not gonna do anything with the backing here because first, I don't think we're gonna see that much. And then if I need, I can just add them later on. But I think that's what we're gonna see the most around here. So now with that in mind, let's just create another description. Let's do like hair blend. Oops, not like that, blend. And then in terms of number, the count is gonna be hard to guess because we are at around 100,000 for the hair, right? So let's say if we put like, I don't know, 50,000 there. Yeah, which is basically what we have in here. No, 50,000 is too much. Let's do like maybe 5 to 10,000. 10,000. Let's try. I don't know which one would be better. So 50. Let's try 80. 6,000. A little higher. 75. I'm just like guesstimating here, guys. So 7,000, something like that. Okay. For the CV count, I'm gonna keep it around. Let's do like 64, so I can get some curvature. And then the thickness, I don't know. So for now, we can just add some of them like that, and then we can control them with some guides. So let's try that. So apply. So we got this nice little blend in there. And in fact, I don't think I'm gonna use the guides, to tell you the truth, because this is like, it's just if you really want a lot of control, you can use the guides. But in this case here, I can just groom straight away. So let's do this like a cheap and fast alternative here. So just add like a sculpt node. Sculpt. And then let's turn this symmetry on the tools. Oops. Let's see this guy here. Under tools, symmetry, world X or object X. And then let's just do a little sculpting here. Let's bring them. Some of them are gonna go towards this area here. So just like down and up. Some of them are gonna start blending, kind of like trying to follow the same direction, like that. Some of them a little bit more towards this. Always like trying to follow that hair line in there. So I'm gonna bring towards them and then start going down and then up so they don't completely disappear in there. And then around here, gonna just do a little split. Like that. kind of stuff, you know, it's like, okay, how much time you want to put, right? Like if you want to do perfect, then use the guides, you know. With a few guides, you can actually control a lot of them, right? But in this case here, because it's so simple and at the end, they're going to be barely visible because they should be almost like a gigantic peach fuzz. That's all it is, you know. It's kind of like a blending peach fuzz in there. So I'm going to do this, and then see they look funny in there. I'm going to just make sure that they're not looking too funny around that area. Just blending. And then we can grow some of them. You can do whatever you hear. I can make them thinner on the fly by just like keep painting some thickness. All right, so let's just get those guys. And then for the color of it, we can play with it. We can have maybe add a different material for them and have a blend a little bit more of, you know, it's a little bit less melanin and stuff like that. Even here, I can actually bring some of those ones. You can use like the brush, you see like this big circle, just barely touch it with the border of it. So you can bring just a few of them down like that. Just like a few of them. But obviously you can do, you know, you can do a better job, especially if you're using some curves in there. But I'm just gonna do like a kind of like cheapo. And then if you notice that stuff started crossing a little bit in there, you can always use this brush here. That's the smooth tool. And I use like local. And then if I do that, let's see, am I using the correct intensity? Let's see. Let's try with the global. I think the global is gonna mess it up. Yeah, it's gonna start messing things up too much. The local works better normally. It's just like, for some reason, it's not affecting too much. And I thought I had enough intensity. Yeah, interesting. There you go. Huh, interesting. Preserve length is doing it. That's so bizarre. Yeah, without preserve length, it's not doing anything. If I turn it on, it's definitely doing it. Definitely smoothing. Well, it's smoothing too much actually. Let's just use less strength here. Let's see. Yeah, I think something like that. We can actually remove some of that mess and make them a little bit more straight. Especially close to the base, you know. Remember I said like if you have a little bit of that S curve at the base, sometimes it looks weird. This guy can actually help to fix some of that. And then obviously this alone is not going to do it, right? So we're always going to use our, you know, a pass of like some noise to it. And also let's check the thickness of it. So this one compared to the hair itself. The hair itself has 0.10 as the thickness. So for the hair blend, let's try to use like maybe half of that. Oops, 0.05. 0.05. There you go. And then another thing you can do, you can actually use like some variation and all kinds of stuff. Like you can plug like some noise maps. So I'm gonna keep it simple for now. I'm just gonna keep like a really like a peach fuzz in there. And then I can use a tube shade. See, like there's a little bit of this difference when I click this one. Just like shows as tubes, right? And then all the way down here, as usual, under Arnold, I'm gonna just click instead of ribbon to create thick when it renders. And then, so for the shader itself, right now we have this shader here for the hair, which has the map applied and all that stuff, right? The main hair. So I'm gonna just click on it and Control D. This one is gonna be my hair blend. So it's another shader. And this one here is gonna have the same type of index of refraction and roughness, but the color, it's basically like I duplicated just the node without the map, so I don't want any map. And the melon here, I'm gonna keep it like very low. So if you go all the way to 1, it's black, right? If you go all the way to 0, it's white. So if I keep something close to like maybe like 1 or 200 here, it should be kind of like a blonde yellow. So let's see, yeah, yellow, very light yellow. So let's apply this one, hair blend, this. Actually, it gave me that trouble. So I'm gonna just click the hair physical shader, select, delete, then click the hair blend again, assign the shader again. Okay, now it's assigned. So and we don't have anything interesting going on in there, right? Like it's very straight lines. We can create all kinds of stuff. You can keep like styling it. You can add some length to it. If you want to add like a general length across the board, you can always use like add a scale node in here. You can play with it like that, right? So you can add like more length on the fly, and then you can keep brushing it and styling later. But in this case here, I'm just gonna deal with noise. So I'm just gonna add a noise one here. So hair blend, let's create a modifier, noise. Starts to look a little bit more interesting. Yeah, I think like I'm not even gonna mess with it. I think it looks okay for a first pass. So I'm just gonna roll with it and see what the render does and see how much thinner we need to go. And if the amount is too much as well, you know. Then we have all this stuff here that's basically the peach fuzz that we can do a second pass to blend like from the forehead all the way to those guys later. So, but I wanna see that stuff first, how they're gonna render. So let's see this, bring around here. Mm-hmm. Okay. Still thinking about it. Okay. Let's see if we're gonna have to refresh the whole thing again or if it's working. So let's see around here. And it's gonna be heavily dependent on the lighting as well, right? Like depending on how the light's gonna hit it, you're gonna get more highlights or not. Let's see if that's gonna do anything. That's how big it is in relation to my render. Yeah, those little guys are taking a little while. Maybe I don't need that much, you know. Maybe I can just reduce the amount. Maybe like cut it by, I don't know, cut like 1/3 of that and just like keep 2/3 of it. Because maybe it's a little bit much. But I can see here, yeah. So I think it's gonna work. Check this out. They might be still a little bit on the thick side of things, you know. It's like maybe I can go even smaller. It's like at this point it's just like half of the thickness. Oh, and another thing obviously I forgot to do that's gonna add some more finesse to the whole thing, which is basically like tweak the profile of the hair, right? Right now it's just a tube. So let's go back here. So let's just do some, refine a little bit. So hair blend, and then let's add a little curve in here. Click the first little dot, gonna turn spline. Click the last little one, spline as well. So now if I bring them down, get like thinner like that, very thin at the edges, at the tips, a little bit thinner at the base, and then go up, and then a little bit like that. I don't really like that profile for most of the hair, although it's not physically accurate, right? Because probably like it's gonna be the thicker part is gonna be the base of it. It just adds more of a blend, you know. It's like it looks nicer in the renders when you have like a little bit of that, like a little thinner than the rest. So like that. So let's see if I save this one, view, store. Let's render it again. And this one should be thinner now, a little bit more delicate. So that would be like the first pass. And then what we can do next, we can actually add a sculpt modifier to the how you call it, the peach fuzz, and then we can actually groom some of them to become a little bit longer, closer to those guys, and a little bit straighter as well, you know. So yeah, there are all kinds of stuff you can do. Same thing you can do close to the eyebrows. You know, it's like you can either do like very thick, bushy eyebrows and then select the edges of the eyebrows and just make them thinner in the edges. So you create the peach fuzz that way. Or you can just put the eyebrows where they should be. And then you use the peach fuzz and just like grow the peach fuzz around the eyebrows to create the same impression. It doesn't, you know, it's like, it's really, you know, up to you guys how you're going to approach it. But it's just like, you know, it's like that's the right thing to do, I believe. You know, it's like to create those blending areas instead of like just going straight to full on hair. But obviously in my case here, I think I have way too much of them. So I'm gonna be tweaking them, maybe making it a little bit smaller in the beginning here, and then a little bit longer closer to the rest of the hair. But if I compare this one to this one, it's a little bit better already, just by doing what I did, like refining them. So this was before, thicker, right? This one after. So if I keep doing that, make it even thinner overall, I think I can get like a nicer result in there. And then you should create like a nice blend between skin and hair, you know, that should really make things a little bit nicer. So let's pretend this one is handle, which is not, right? We have to move on. So this one, probably what I'm gonna have to do is maybe like reduce even more, maybe like 0.04 in here, something like that. And then let's do a little pass here on the peach fuzz itself. So if I'm gonna use the peach fuzz, I can just click on it, add a modifier, and then add a sculpt. Click this one, click edit, otherwise nothing happens. And then now, let's just brush those guys so they can actually look more straight. So I'm gonna bring them up. It should be slow just at the beginning and then should work better now. So I'm gonna do this towards the hair, right? Like trying to follow the same direction. Like that. So basically like just going and trying to meet them in the same direction they are happening in there. And then now with all those awesome brushes that we have from XGen, which is a very buggy piece of software, but in terms of features, it's really packed. It has a ton of cool stuff. So what are we gonna do? We're just gonna pick one of them here, the length one. So the first one here. I'm gonna switch my tool settings to symmetric. So in world X, and then I'm gonna grow this brush a little bit and see how much scale we can put. So my increment is negative right here, so I'm gonna just put positive for now. Or you can just use Control to switch back and forth between negative and positive. And then for the strength is at 20. Let's make it a little bit smaller. And this one a little bit bigger. Because I don't want to grow things too much too fast. And then around here, we're gonna grow those guys very slightly. I'm just like tapping, you know, just tapping in there. Create a nice little blend. And then underneath them as well, right? This whole area. So you can create a nice blend between them. And because the shader is already fairly yellowish and pale, right? Like there's very little melanin to it. It should blend very nicely, you know, I think. So let's just grow them longer. And if you need to make them a little bit thicker, then you just switch to this brush here, right? And on the fly, you can just paint the thickness. And everything is going to be baked within this, this layer that we just created, sculpt layer. So at some point you change your mind, you're going to remove this. You can just like switch off that layer and or delete the layer altogether and you're done. So that's what's cool, you know, it's like about having everything piled as different sculpt modifiers. So you can actually just like whatever you want. So now we have like this nice little transition in there between what's peach fuzz and what's the blending in there, right? Maybe an interesting thing would be like to create a little bit of a split in the middle, and like trying to add more interest, like, you know, it's like kind of like that, blend it out. It adds this interesting shape in there. And then now, this is basically the same technique I would use around here for the eyebrows. It's just that I don't have the eyebrows just yet. We're gonna just do a little, just gonna brush them down a little bit so they can kind of wait for the eyebrows for when I have them in there. And then you can do the same thing for this entire area. I mean, like you can create a little split in the middle here, kind of start blending towards the sides like that, and then change direction in there. So you see like it's basically like going up and then going down from here on. So you can do that kind of stuff, whatever you need to do. So now that we have that little blend, we can even grow, for example, like some of the new hair itself, the hair blend. Let's use the sculpt that I added before, which is underneath the noise. I can turn off the noise so it's faster for me to interact with it. And then let's just grow some of them with this. Just adding a little bit more length. I think it's actually locked at maximum length, so let's just unlock that. Yeah, that's about it. I'm not going to do a whole lot of stuff because this is the general idea, and it's just a matter of like how much you guys gonna push your own grooming there, you know. So let's see if we do like a bigger render here, maybe something like that shows a little chunker, a little bigger chunk of the whole thing. So maybe like something from here, which is cool. I think you can catch a glimpse of those guys in there as well. Let's see how that blends. Still it's missing more hair in here close to the sideburns. I'm probably gonna add another description there, but let's see how that renders. So let's pick maybe like this area. It's a big area, but let's try maybe from here to here. Slightly smaller area. Still pretty big, it's gonna take a little bit. So while this is rendering, let's just switch to what I said before, which was like the eyes, right? Like the eyelids, because I wanna tackle this as well. And we only have tomorrow, so I'm gonna try to squeeze as much stuff as possible today. So before I do the rendering here, let's just export the eyes because I wanna make sure I have the latest eyes. So let's see, I1 right here, and then they should have I2 somewhere. Oh man, I have a bunch in here. I don't even know which ones I'm using at this point. Let's see, let's go back here with my camera. There you go. So let's see, panels, perspective 2. It's funny with the short hair in there and no braids. So let's check it out. Let's see, I1. That looks like it. Looks like it's in this spot. But which one is this one here now? That's the question. This one? Not that one. So this one is busted. It's probably from that scene that I have all those eyes together. I was rendering for you guys. I never changed it. See, it's not even those guys. Let's see. Eyes. Jessica. Jesus. Gotta stop deleting this stuff, man, because it's not doing anything. Delete this ones and then age. No, this one. Nope. None of them. So let's see. Which one is that, man? Hope I still have it. Hope it didn't delete by mistake or something. Oh, it's right here. Okay, cool. Oh, Jesus. So let's try to delete all this crap that I'm not using so I'm not confused later. Okay, so let's just export this guy and this guy. This guy and this guy. File, export, selection, OBJ. And then that's my think about that. And then under OBJ, let's save iStamp 5. It's a fine number. And then back to perspective, back to the render. Let's leave it working there for us. And then let's bring those eyes in here. So Polymesh 3D, import obj eye stamp, back to this guy, append, where is it? Eye stamp right here. It's probably the last one. Let's bring it all the way up. So one is flipped, we don't worry about that. Let's flip that back. I'm gonna put right underneath the face. All right, so let's hide this guy and flip this fella here. Display, flip, done. Let's Control D, subdivide a few times so it's round and nice. So remember like when I mentioned before, the intention here is to actually have, let's just hide everything. I'll hide that one and this one. The intention is to actually have a pose that has the eyes in place already. For example, like in the case of Caterina, she's sculpting Roberto Benigni, right? And he has a rotation in his head. And then the eyes are probably looking towards the side. So in that case, it's basically like she's gonna have to find what's the best optimal position for the eyes, right? Like to be looking at. And then she's gonna have to sculpt the eyelids to conform to that specific position. But in my case here, I don't have a plan yet for, you know, it's like I didn't plan like the composition at the end of what directions is gonna be looking at, if the neck's gonna be rotated or whatever, you know. But once I have that defined, I would probably do what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna show you guys what's my approach for it. So the first one is to actually make sure that everything conforms to the eyeballs at the macro level, right? So basically like you're gonna make sure that there's no gaps anywhere. So let's just do, let's go to topological. Topological sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't work that great. And I'm gonna switch to transform, activate symmetry, possible symmetry. I'm at 1 million polys in here. Maybe I don't need all of that. Let's go back one subdivision level. That should be faster. So at this point here, it would be nicer, for example, if this, I'm gonna switch my symmetry off. If this was actually had a little bit more of a breathing room for the eyelid itself, that's a little, you know, a little mushed in there together. Just gonna open a little bit more of that. So it has a little bit more of when you look from the bottom. And for the fold itself, it's gonna be kind of like an echo of it. So it's kind of like an offset of it, right? Because like all this volume, it's a bunch of meat in there. So I'm just gonna get a little bit more volume in there. And then I'm gonna make sure that the curvature is fairly continuous, you know. The last thing you want when you have things, for example, like nostrils and eyelids, is to have lumps, you know. It's like everything looks lumpy. Instead of having like a nice curvature in everything, everything looks kind of like zigzaggy like that, you know. It looks really terrible. So make sure that everything has a nice flow to it, so it looks more natural, but without looking too mechanical as well, right? So when you look from the front here, you see like that this little area here, I create a little peak. So it's a little bit of more of the square. It's a little bit squarish right around here. So it's not like a complete round curvature. So it's round around here and in relation to the eyeball. But when I get to the front, it's a little bit more like it starts being round here, but around here, it gets a little bit more square, right? Just to add a little bit more of a rhythm in there. Now for the bottom lids, I need to create like a nice offset. And as you can tell, I don't have a nice offset right just now. And what I mean by that is like, if you look at this area around here, see it's getting very thin around here. So I can add a little bit more thickness. But then when I get around here in the middle, it's getting very thick, close to this edge. And it's also not flat enough at the top. So I'm gonna start to actually trying to tweak this whole area to get a little bit more interesting and square at the top. As we want that impression when you have the tear line in there, that's a flat surface at the top, you know, it's like, so it has room for reflection there and everything. So what you can do here you can come with a brush like the H polish. So press H. That's the only one with the H, the name. So that one. If you keep like the intensity very high like that, it basically like works to make things flat like that, right? So it's pretty cool if you're trying to stylize a character and, you know, just like create like planes and things like that, right? And it's also very useful for this kind of area here, but without using like an intensity too high. So maybe like something like, I don't know, like 12, something like that. So I can do like a small and steady version of that. So like make things everything plain around here. It's a little bit too strong, but we can actually soften it back. Just make sure that's a little bit, has a little bit of an angle. That's flat enough, but not like a shelf, right? It has to have a little bit of an angle down. And same around here, so you're gonna do that, flatten it. Make sure you don't have like a completely sharp edge at the end, especially if it's an older person. It seems like as you get older, this area gets a little bit more puffy. So the tendency is to have a little bit more of, you know, a little bit more round around this edge. And then for a younger person, probably a little bit sharper. But try not to go too crazy with the sharpness. So we're gonna bring this one closer to the eyeball. Make sure that it was really wrapping. I mean, like I mentioned before, like in previous classes, I would go as far as going inside of the cavity and trying to prevent the intersection with the eyeball altogether. But it's overkill, you know. It's like if you're not gonna see it in there, and if you're not animating, it's just for a still, you don't need to go that far, you know. It's like unless you're getting some major artifacts with the subsurface scattering, but I don't think you will, you know. It's like it has to be something really major to show in there. So I'm just gonna do this. Make sure I don't have any gaps, especially like around the corner here. There's no gap. And then in this middle section here is gonna be the caruncula filling up that area, right? But I still can bring those guys a little bit closer here. So it's not, basically like what happens in here is that it's being pulled towards this area right here. So we normally have it pumping like out like that a little bit. And then it goes in and then comes out again. And sometimes this area here, depending on the person, it can be very stretched. So it's like almost like a straight line like this. But I like to have this little, you know, indentation just to have, it looks more elegant like that. Especially if I'm stylizing a character, I want to make sure that when I look at stuff from different angles, it looks elegant, you know. It's already like has way too many wrinkles already, so I make sure that things look nice. So let's do that. And then the last thing I'm going to show you, obviously, everything I'm doing here it's not as carefully as I would do if I was doing on my own rhythm. I would take my sweet time, right? But I have to show you guys and make sure that we are seeing the most of everything. So basically, like everything I'm doing, consider doing better and more carefully than what I'm doing. That's what I'm saying. So like do more carefully and better. So I'm gonna go with the edge polish again, and I'm gonna basically like make this area here also flat, but without going too crazy with the flatness, right? Keep a little bit round, but for the most part flat underneath. This is almost like it's gonna read almost like a mirror, you know? You have to remember, like every time you're sculpting something, you think about it physically, okay? So how, it's almost like an engine you're dealing with, right? Like you're dealing with a human engine in here. And then, so all those moving parts, for example, like how does the eye work, right? So we have like all this skin outside in here that's protecting. You have like the eyelashes protecting. It's like, it's probably like the fastest reactive muscle you have in your body, right? Like if you have anything coming towards your eye and it hits your eyelashes, you're gonna instantly close it like in a fraction of a second, right? So everything is planned for that. There's all this protection outside. But inside here, remember when you close your eyes, this is the stuff that's gonna be in touch with your eyeball, right? Like, so this area we're actually making a little square in here. It's because like it has to be like as clean as a mirror. It doesn't have wrinkles in there. It's a very lubricated surface, right? So you're basically going to be considering that when you're sculpting this, you're kind of like cleaning it up like any lumps you have, because that's going to be in touch with your eyeball. So all this stuff, you're definitely going to have little veins in there, interesting detail, you know, and it's going to be like a membrane at the end. It's going to be like a very thin, delicate surface and type of skin that's going to be in touch directly with your eyeball. Imagine if it was like a rough surface, right? You would probably scratch your cornea or something, you know. But yeah, we have to make sure that those things are not all wrinkly in the inner parts, right? The inner parts have to be super clean and shiny. A bit more cleaning there. And you see, like I kept a little bit more of the curvature at the very edge because this is an older guy, and like I said, like I like the feel of a little bit more meaty when it's an older guy, like that. You know, it's like around the eyes. So, and then around here, just gonna bring this slightly up around this area because remember he's kind of like squinting a little bit, right? There's a little bit of that intense look, almost like he's looking towards the sun. So this area here would have to replicate that little squint feeling. And then obviously this area here would have to have the same, right? So I'm gonna have to bring it up just slightly, just to help with the squint. And the squint actually is gonna, you know, it's like echo around everything. So basically like when you squint, this whole area here scissors like this, right? So it comes from here all the way here. And then with that, you're probably gonna have a little bit of a lift of this entire region in here. So before I had a very round region in there, but I start like slowly just adding a little bit more of that just to reinforce the idea of the squint. But it's very subtle, you know, but definitely has this scissoring effect when you squint. There's another scissoring that happens in the outside as well. But so now we have the eyeball and the lids. More, you know, it's like a little bit with a better connection between the two of them. There is no holes in there I can see. If there's any hole in here in the middle, basically Carancula is going to end up like filling that up, right? But we have like a nicer, smoother surface now in the bottom and the top. So let's switch to HD here. Make this guy. That.
Hi, Chris.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question about the albedo?
Sure.
I know that you paint like a cavity mask.
No, I don't.
You don't?
No, I don't paint any cavity.
Not the cavity mask when you paint the wrinkles inside of the wrinkles.
Oh yeah, it's like if I'm trying to give like an impression of you know, it's like sunburn, for example. Mm-hmm. Then I can definitely select my cavity, but I don't how can I say, like I don't paint a map that's a cavity map. I just select my cavity and I just use that just to isolate those wrinkles, and then I paint the redness around them, basically.
Yeah, I expressed myself wrong. That's what I was asking. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
So you paint in what color? Like a little bit red.
Yeah, a little bit red, exactly. Yeah, but never like with the plain color, right? Always using a spray. So you kind of like you pick like a cup of different tones, and then you can actually spread. It would be interesting to look for like sunburn, you know, it's like pictures and try to find out that. Or for example, like let's see if we can find like let's see, furrow compression. Let's see. Oh, that's not it. That's not it. Let's see, expression, facial expression. Yeah, it's gonna be hard to see here. Let's see, eyebrows. Eyebrow. Let's see if we can find a term here that shows any compression, blood flow, something like that. Let's see. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, like we do have, like in our pipeline, for example, we have a system that generates that. For example, if you have, you know, some kind of facial expression being dialed, it actually calculates, you know, it's like the blood flow and makes everything like within the wrinkles a little bit lighter, and then the stuff around a little bit redder, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know how we could search for this like as a reference. You probably, yeah, there's probably something we can find. Facial expression, compression, blood flow. Interesting. Yeah, let's see, sunburn. White, let's see, pale skin, face. Oh, sunburn, sunburn. Sunburn, pale skin, face. Okay, so something like this, but considering it would have to be someone older, because those ladies here, they're too young. So that's like a general kind of redness. But like with the no, oh, that's is that Kim Kardashian? Does it look like it? So yeah, it's like, it would be this kind of like redness in here, but just like, it's almost like you consider the pale parts in here as being like inside of the wrinkles, and then everything outside would be like this tone of redness. And it's a matter of like how much you want them to be visible. You know, it's like how sunburned the skin is. He adds a nice little touch. I think I did this for Ray Harryhausen for the June class. I added a little bit of that. But yeah, it's like, it's just like the cavity I use is just like the selecting by cavity, and this space, like, you know, to make sure that the bigger wrinkles are contemplated in there. You just like paint around them. But yeah, that's a good homework for you to check it out and try to find like some references that show this compression, like especially with older people, you know. I would say like a guy like Roy, that guy that I sculpted, it's full of wrinkles in his face. Mm-hmm. That guy would probably have a ton of that stuff, you know. Although he's kind of like Native American, so his skin would be more like probably like a natural tan instead of like a red one. But yeah, so let's just select this area here. And I'm gonna go HD to it. And this is a little detail that I add every time. And it might be overkill, but I like it, which is to add a little bit of a membrane to look like the eye is actually, oh man, this is the worst. I just touched the surface. That's HD using the move topological. Sometimes if you do a crazy move in there, like it locks, it takes forever to move. So what I'm gonna do now, because ZBrush can actually recognize when there is a little intersection happening between two objects, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use my clay build up. I'm gonna turn off my symmetry, and I'm gonna build a little wall in here by using this guy, which is gonna be like a, you see, like I have this, oh shit, let's see. Let's turn off my RGB, turn on this one. I want to start smoothing some stuff here, especially those wrinkles in there. I have to remove them. So I'm gonna build a little wall right against the eye. And because it's a clay buildup and there's another object behind, it should respect it. So I'm gonna just do this a little roughly first. With the clay buildup right at the edge. And then I'm gonna start smoothing it out. So I'm gonna build a little bit higher. It's very regular right now, but with enough smooth, we should get back to a nice little curvature. Let's go back one subdivision level so we can do it faster. The last thing I want is to create like too much lumpiness in there. So it has to be a very clean little line in there. I can even like dig a little deeper around here to counter it. So basically like around this area. I'm gonna do a little bit deeper. So I'm gonna create a little ramp going towards the eyeball, like that. There's a very thin membrane, so it all depends on how your geometry is behind it, obviously. Sometimes you can create a bunch of mass in there. But if it looks good enough from here, it's probably gonna render fine. what this does is actually, it creates a tiny little membrane that you're probably not going to notice if you're rendering stuff from a distance, but if you're doing close-ups, you're probably going to notice that, you know. So now I have like, instead of like having that line that was just like a harsh line that was hitting it, now it goes basically like it goes, if I exaggerate here, let's just exaggerate so you can see what I actually did in there. So basically like I have this line that's very strong like that, and then another one that, oops, it's gonna be hard, gonna be more complicated to see that way. So hard like that and higher, and then go deeper around here, and then raises again into a very thin membrane right there. That's basically what I did. So like I have this lining here, and then I dug a little bit this area to hollow it, and then the membrane was sculpted in there. So that one, when you render with subsurface scattering, it should help with the blend between the eyeball and the skin, you know. And then on top of that, you're going to be adding your little tear line that we talked about before. That was just like a super simple geometry, right? It's just like a 90-degree thing that is basically like just subdivided a couple of times. So it looks like a perfect half pipe. If you're a skateboard, you know what a half pipe is. And and then that's basically it. You know, it's like with that covering this little membrane in here, the blend should be quite perfect. You know, it should be looking very nice at the end. So I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna just dig a little bit in this area here, closer to it, a little bit deeper. And then I'm gonna go stronger with my brush, making sure that the curvature is perfect or close to perfect, right? All you don't want here is to have something like, you know, it's kind of undulations in there like that. You don't want that. You want like a curve that's very clean, you know, so we can actually tweak it by hand and then use smooth planing. And then obviously, because the eyeball here is in this neutral position, is looking forward, so it's actually accommodating this, basically like conforming to this bulge in there, right? But then if you have the eyeball, the final position is a different position, then you're probably gonna have to do this little pass again, which doesn't take too long, right? Just to make sure that things are conforming nicely. So let's go to the highest resolution. And then again, like around this area here, it's still quite simple. You see, like in terms of the detail, I don't have a lot going on. I'm gonna have to refine this entire area here, add some more interesting detail, and then add some bumps around here. One thing you can do, you can always convert your XGen to polygons, and you can bring the polygon, if you wanna be very precious about it, you can convert the polygons to polygons and then bring to ZBrush, and then use those polygons as a reference to paint little dots and bumps right at the roots, and you get the perfect connection, you know? So you can get like, the cool thing about that is that the bumps, they're gonna become a little translucent, and then you're gonna create a nice little blend with the eyelashes, you know? But that's again, like if you wanna go for extreme close-ups, you know? Otherwise, if it's just like a little bit more open shot, you're not gonna see that much. But you see, like that's a very, very subtle change we just did around here, right? And for the render itself, it's gonna help for sure, but it's gonna be a tiny little, see, like I'm just improving the curvature right here. I noticed it was a little lumpy. Make sure that's very, very nice and round. It's very amazing, you know, it's like when you look at something, even if you're not a specialist in anatomy or anything like that, you're like just a common human walking the world, you can tell that something is weird. You cannot put your finger in it, you know, but at the same time, people notice when things are slightly weird, you know. So if you try to actually get like the most, how can I say that, like the landmarks of the face, you know, it's like something like that, like lumps in areas that are supposed to have a lot of, you know, it's like not pressure but tension, right? For example, like the eyeball is pressing against the surface of the eyelid from the inside, so you're getting like this, like to become very thin because there's a pressure being, you know, it's like you close your eyes, you can see like, you know, it's like the eyeballs are pressing everything out. So this has to read as something that has tension in it. It's pretty much stretched in there, right? So even if you're not a specialist, and if you look at something that looks a little bit lumpy around this area, something that, you know, I'm exaggerating, but something that doesn't look like it has, you know, tension in there, your brain instantly registers it, you know? And it's weird because like, he was like, oh, there's something weird. I don't know what it is. And it's just like those tiny little things, you know, it's like it's paying attention to gravity, to tension, to compression, to all those things. And try to do the best you can to trick someone watching it, you know, looking at your model. And I like the fact that I, you know, it's like using some weirdness in terms of proportion, making the proportions more weird than something more natural. And at the same time having like very nice realistic details. It messes up with people's heads, you know, kind of like, oh man, that's weird, but it's cool, you know. So let's see how this render turned out. So that's basically what we did just now, just adding that little pass. Obviously, in his case here, he's like a tanned guy, right? So maybe what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna go darker instead of like going completely blonde like that. This is probably gonna work fine for someone with a, you know, pale skin and then blonder hair. At the same time, you know, it's like, I mean, like I have like very dark hair and brown skin as well. And depending on how much sun I get like fairly blonde in certain areas of my arms. So maybe I'm gonna have to, you know, to see what looks better for what I need. But I definitely want to mix some darker stuff in the middle. Maybe keep some blondes, but like mix some more darks ones in there. But it works very nicely, right? Like instead of like having that just harsh line in there, now you have like a nice little blend. That's a combination of the, here is definitely is a little bit too much. It looks like a cat. There's a cat in there. I actually like this area here because it starts blending with the rest of the stuff around. But I definitely need more hair to cover this area and create like some nicer, how do you call, like sideburns, right? But not sideburns per se, because, you know, those guys don't have a lot of hair in there. But what I mean is just like some thinner hair that can just cover this area a little bit better in here. I can even like turn some of those guys that just sculpted a little bit thicker and use a color, actually. Use a map that can control the hair, the color of the entire hair. If you look at the class of May, that's what I did for Stan Winston. What I had was like a hair color pass that was just like a black and white map. And then where I wanted to have like those little whites, I would paint a little black dot in my map inside of ZBrush. And then with that, I got like a very precise control of where I want the white hairs to happen in the eyelash, not the eyelashes, the eyebrows. So for example, like when I look at the reference, he had certain ones pretty close to the center and here very white. And I was like, okay, how I'm going to control that just using a noise brush, map, right? There's no way. So by painting a map for the entire head, I was able to do that. So I might do that as well in here. Now that way I can actually create some a noise pattern. So some of them are going to be darker than the other ones. And then when it gets to this area here, I make like most of it dark. And then some of them like little dots of white, you know, so it's easier to control precisely the entire color of everything, right? For the eyebrows, I still have to do that pass that I mentioned, which is that this one here, right? That I want something more like that kind of like it's a little bit more bare right in the middle, and then it kind of goes up, so it starts a little thin and it gets thicker as it gets close to this area here. I think that's gonna work nicely, you know. But I'm gonna tell you, I really like to see him without any eyebrows. I think he has an interesting expression without them. So first, I think I'm gonna add the eyebrows. Then I'm gonna try like a combination of blends and see if I can add less of that. And then if that doesn't work out, I was just like, you know, just ignore altogether. Gonna keep like just put a few of them in there and then call it done, because I kind of like it. And then there's something else I was about to say. About the maps. Let's see, it was Leo that requested. So I'm probably gonna do this tonight, which is basically like give you a collection of those maps, basically like exported. So, you know, it's like the maps I have at this point here, they grew a little bit in terms of like the amount of maps, right? So now I have, let's see, now I have this map here, which is my bump height, right? So I have the bump height map in there, which is for the micro bump stuff. So I'm gonna export these ones and then, you know, give a general idea. Although I think it's easier for you guys to see if I actually save some screenshots like this, you know. I don't know, because my maps, like the layout of the maps might not be the most you know, visible kind of thing. But if I do this with the flat color, I think that should do it. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what I actually meant. Like,
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
meant for you to show you your UDIMS
Okay.
itself.
Okay.
It was mostly to what class. I think you did that with the sorry, with the diffuse, with the albedo.
Uh-huh.
That you took like a flat render on the model,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise it'll be almost really hard to see.
Oh yeah, it's so hard, man.
So I feel like that will do. That will definitely do, because
yeah, but in HD, right? So for example, like
really pixelated everywhere.
yeah, so in HD, for example, if I go HD, then you're gonna be able to see everything. Yeah, sure. Yeah, just bear in mind that my guy is very tan. So
No, I mean, like, it's just like a reference to see like breakup and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, definitely.
Everything is in reference looks very broad. Like, at least for me, like very blurry, very pixelated.
Oh yeah, there's no way to see. I was trying to watch the video, and like every time I paint the albedo, every single month, man, it's like it's impossible to see anything. And there's nothing I can do in terms of compression, because I tried. It's just like doesn't allow me to even change.
Yeah,
that.
no, I get it. So I thought like maybe that would be like a cool thing to
yeah,
add as extra.
Definitely. Yeah. I can add as a kind of like an add-on lesson, you know, and then you have you have all those screenshots in there. Definitely gonna do this tonight.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then what else we need to check out today? There was like a couple of things. There was the hair. I think let's see. The approach for the sideburns is gonna be basically the same approach I had for. Oh man, I didn't save that. Stupid me. I had that nice screenshot. I forgot to save it. Oh, it's here. Okay, let's save it. Store. And then let's delete this one. We don't need that one. So just to have a little reference. You know, it's like when I'm working, I keep like saving those screenshots just to go as a back and forth and see, okay, like let's really look into it and see what's missing, right? So this area is messed up. Okay, gonna fix it in there. Maybe the hairline, I have to bring a little bit here. Now with the peach fuzz in there and with the blending, maybe all I need is to just like make some of them a little darker, and then I'm gonna get this nice little shadow in there. So I can do that as well. And then the braids gonna be my biggest challenge. I'm gonna try to resolve a little bit better between today and tomorrow. So hopefully I'm gonna have better braids in the last day, so I don't look terrible. And yeah, man, it's like there was something else I had to talk to you guys today. It's just like, you know, it's like I said, like I have like a ballpark of where I'm gonna go with those classes, but then I really wanna, of course, like advance with my model, and then basically put you guys with me in the ride. You know, it's like, okay, so I have this problem here, and that's how I resolve it and stuff. But at this point here, because I kind of got a little stuck because of the hair, yeah, since we are here, let me try to actually resolve this problem we are having here with this mess. Let's try that. I'm gonna try to remove that stuff, man, because you're gonna run into this eventually if you're working with a lot of noise and stuff like that. You're probably gonna run into that. Let's just remove. Let me see. This is the hair blend, the main hair. Let's just get rid of this first noise here. That's the biggest one. And the top one should be just, yeah, look at that. This is the one that's messing up the most. Man, did it change a lot of the shape or what? That noise that I had was changing the entire shape. I think it was too strong. Holy smokes, look how thin it was before. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to tweak that noise. I didn't know it. I went that far. So let's try a couple of things here. Let's see if it's possible for me to rebuild those curves. If I go to this guy here, let's see if it's something that's rebuildable. It's like 200. Okay, that actually helped a lot. Look at that. I think what happened is that because I had the curves and I actually just trimmed them. Remember, I trimmed the curve with this guy here. I think what happened, it actually compressed all the control points of the curve, and then it became that mess in there. But just like rebuilding the curve itself, look at that. I think I resolved the problem. Yeah, if I keep clicking it, obviously it's gonna reduce more and more. But I think for what it is, I think that's great. I think that's all the mess that was being caused. Now the other problem is this one here that's adding a lot of thickness to everything. So let's see this noise here. What's going on? It's gonna add a ton of thickness. I think what I have to do is actually be more, yeah, look at that. Whew. So I have to be more careful with my magnitude. And let's try like half of that or something. It was looking pretty cool up there though. So I might, yeah, I might do like a sculpt pass just to make a little, you know, straighter around this area here. But let's see what happens if I do like less magnitude. Still calculating. Okay, that's better. That's more like I was expecting. And then the hair itself, let's see. Yeah, it has a little noise in there. It might be a little too straight right now. But, something to look into. And then let's look at our braids, what we have at that point. Now they're looking a little bit thicker, but I still can play and then make this curves a little bit more spread out to kind of merge with them. But I'm kind of like out of ideas for how to make those braids follow those curves a little bit closer, if you guys have any idea. I was thinking that's just like the way that the emission is happening from those little planes, but I might be wrong. You know, like those guys are going like a little bit kind of smaller like that, but then those guys are kind of growing for that from that entire area. Let's see if I could. Hello.
Hey, I'm sorry, I missed the beginning, so I'm not sure how you have this constructed, but like all the hair are following all the three sets of curves, or are they separated in any way? So like one part of the hair just goes with one braid and then there are three separate?
No, that's what I was talking about. Like, for example, like I have this plane here, right? And the plane, it's this little circle in here, is actually emitting the hair, right? And then from that point, I actually just used the curves I had generated by XGen, not by XGen, but by InHair. And then I just said like, okay, just follow, you know, it's like use those ones as guides, right? But the thing is, like, I didn't have them close enough to the size of that plane. So I'm afraid that basically like he got a little confused on how to basically like attach to that plane, you know? So it's like if I had this a little bit bigger, for example, I think the attachment would be better. But and then because my plan was to do this, I mean, like if I had big enough in there, maybe what I could do was to select like a branch, for example, like if I could select one like, let's see, braids, guide. Let's add like a modifier here inside of the guides. Let's do sculpt. And then with this one, let's just try to select like a bundle. Let's see if it's possible to get just one of them. Yeah, that I think did it. So this guy here, for example, if it's one of them, I would have to have it attached to one single spot. I think the way it happened here, because this little plane was too small and this branch was too big, I think he tried to attach the best he could in there and he got a little confused. So I think my plan is to actually make a bigger plane and then make sure that's bigger than the actual, you know, the splines themselves, so they can attach to a single part, you know, because right now it's actually attaching to the side and then to the other side is kind of like all over the place. And I think that's why it's getting confused how to interpolate things, you know, because if they attach just to one side, for example, 1/3 of it right here, then that means I would be able to actually even paint a little mask in ZBrush with a solid color and then paint a different color for each one of them and make sure that I force them to actually conform to that, you know?
Yeah, that's the idea I had, because otherwise they're just interpolate between all three of them, and that's what makes it not follow like
exactly.
one specific group.
Exactly. Yeah, because the curves are so nice, huh? Like they turn out pretty cool. The curves are very
Yeah,
nice.
they did.
Yeah. So yeah, let's try to do this by let's do a saving here. I'm gonna experiment with that since we have a few minutes, and let's see if we can get a better result. Okay. This one is actually, it was saved after my 2 crashes, so I don't even know if this file is completely stable. You know, like when you save stuff after crashes and then like the file over time, it gets like some trouble and stuff and you have to do some cleanup. It kind of sucks. Sometimes if I'm running into many like crashes and stuff and the file becomes a little unstable, I think I talk about this like in the July class. I normally select everything I have in my outliner, select every single thing in there, and then I click File, Export Selection, and as MB. I select everything, export as MB. Then I open a brand new Maya, import everything, including the cameras and everything. And then it becomes like a very clean scene, and sometimes like reduce the size in megabytes by a lot. Sometimes it's stuff that you try to clean up by using the cleanup, where's the optimize scene size, this one here, right? This tool. Sometimes you try to use this one, it doesn't clean up. There's some ghost nodes in Maya that you can never find them ever. It's so bizarre. But then if you do that way, export stuff and then re-import, everything is clean. And then all you have to do is basically like just reset your render settings, and then everything else should work. I didn't do that for this scene, so it's still probably very dirty, but let's see. So let's do another definition in here, description, sorry. And I'm gonna hide this guides. So no guides. And then what I have is those little planes. So let's look at what I have in terms of the curves. So I have this one, which I think this one at this point is useless because those are the generated curves. So I'm gonna just delete it. And then let's do hair, follicle, and hair. Let's show it up. And then the hair system and PFX hair. So that's basically it. So the PFX hair, paint effects hair, that's what I need to know. So you see like what I had before, it was a very thick, you know, it's like it's a lot of stuff there. It was trying to basically like accommodate and get like all compressed inside of that little surface in there. I think that was the main problem. So I'm gonna do a few adjustments here and see if that helps. So the hair system itself, let's just get the shape and just make a little bit less thick overall. Something like that. Let's see how it looks in here. Maybe even a little bit less. I think it's getting a little thick. Something like that. And now let's grow this little plane. So I have one for this guy, this side, another one for this side. Let's just do this. Let's center everything. And then scale it up. I think I can have bigger, but not smaller. Smaller is going to be a recipe for disaster. But at the same time, I cannot go much bigger. Otherwise, you're probably going to try to, it's going to have a trouble interpolating stuff. But just looking at those guys here, I think they all go to a corner and don't actually cross that much, but I might be wrong. So let's see if just making them bigger, if the result's gonna be better. So let's do this. Let's get my hair system. No, not the hair system, the PFX hair. And then I'm gonna go to the modify, convert paint effects to curves. Okay, so let's hide all this crap. And this, all this stuff. So I have just the curves in here. Cool, so they look nice and that it probably like doing a nice braiding in there. Looks like, it's hard to tell, but it looks like they're going in and out very nicely. So let's create our description first. So I have my little planes, and you have to make sure that the normals are flipped the right direction, otherwise it's gonna grow the other way, right? So they're both flipped down, so the normals are facing down. So let's do create interactive groom. Here blend, so we're gonna switch back to rates B. Let's see if that's gonna help. And then I had the total was like 1500 per side, so it was like maybe 180. It's a bit much, 160, something like that. Actually, now it's for both, so I have to go higher than this, so 320. Yeah, so I have 3,000 total. And then the CV count I'm gonna keep at 64, but we're probably gonna have to, actually, let's do this now. Let's make it very, very long, 250. And that's about it. So now I have my little description in there. So let's create a guide modifier. So add modifier guide, bam. And then let's select our curves. And see if the result looks a little bit better. And then control click the guide. Oh, that looks much nicer. Oh yeah, that's gonna do it, I think. Not a specialist, but doesn't look like shit. Anyway, let's see. Plus the other one kind of looked like shit a little bit. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of like getting it close enough to the size of it. But it's interesting. Let's see if we do that test again, if I can just try to paint. Yeah, just try to paint a selection of the guides. If I can do that just with one branch. It's gonna be tight. Okay, I have to add a modifier. So let's add a modifier, sculpt. Edit, and then let's try to select one of them. So that one picks something else. Okay, this guy here is following, and this one is probably part of it as well. And it's ending. Yeah, it's still a little mixed. They're gonna cross in there anyway. Seems like they're gonna be crossing. So it's not like I can force with some colors in there in the plane. I'm gonna have to deal with it. But just the fact that they are following them closely here, that's much better already. So let's do, make sure I have everything hidden. And then let's hide the guides themselves. Yeah, see, like, still messy around here. Huh. It's definitely not doing like the, you know, it's like the in and out like perfectly in there. I thought it was actually, because when I look at the curves, it looks pretty nice. But it's still having problem interpolating. Yeah, I'm gonna have to try to see how I'm gonna play this, but I think an alternative here for me would be to do exactly what I'm doing right now, which is like having this those curves. The thing is, like, I cannot move the roots of the curves at this point, right? I wish I could move the root of them, because that way I could actually just put every single one of them in the blue in here in the corner, paint a mask to force it, and then do the same with the next one and the next one and the next one. But this, yeah, I don't know how I would do that. It starts pretty nicely in here, but then it gets messy around there. Like, it's pretty far from the curves. Yeah, the interpolation is definitely not that great. Maybe I'm gonna have to create much more of those branches, you know, and then export many more curves to be able to force it. I'm not sure. I am not sure. But I'm sure I'm gonna delete this again.
Did you ever test just with actual 3 curves and then modifying it with noises and stuff to make it look more random? Because just 3 curves would be much easier to control.
Yeah, let's try with that. 3 or, yeah, it's either 3 or like more of them. So let's see. Let's try that. So let's get this guy visible again. And let's see if we can create 3 of them too, because it's a bunch now. Okay, so let's get this guy here. delete them. And then now we have our PFX here. So let's see. So I have like right now 60. Let's see if we can do 3. Oops. What about that? That looks simple enough. What do you think? Should we try? You see, like it's actually looking at here, it's like it's very small at the base. Maybe what I did, tweaking this curve here, wasn't the best thing at the end, but I don't know, because they still start a little bit small, and then it basically like this. The braid starts untangled and then it tangles later. But it's it would be nice if I could flare out this a little bit more, which is not happening. Only if I do this, right? If I crank this one pretty big, then it kind of like starts a little bit more spread out. So let's try with 10 here. It's too big. Let's try 8. That's a little closer. And then if there is a way for us to reduce this, keep this one high and then reduce the rest. That might actually work. So it's a little bit closer to the outer parts. So we could potentially, yeah, I think that would be an easy paint, right? Like, what do you think? To paint this in 3 spots, basically like split by 3, and then paint like yellow, red, and blue. That'd be as long as I keep this pretty high, like the clumpy here, like pretty high like that, so at least it's like closer to the borders of it. I think it's a possibility, but I have to test. And I'm gonna bring this curve down like this. So it starts thick in there and then gets thinner, and it's getting way too thin around there. Let's get this curve bigger so I can see what I'm doing. Balance out this area here. Oh, that's the, oh, sure. Here, and then this area a little bit thicker as well. This one linear, and this one linear as well. Let's see what happens. So interesting that actually making super thin at the end, which I don't care that much. At the end is fine, but I want to make sure that this middle area is a little bit bigger. Yeah, something like that. And that's starting pretty big right there. So let's see, man. I don't know. I'm curious about this. Not perfect, but let's see what happens. So if I do this PFX and I export those guys, convert PFX to curves. Okay, let's hide them again. And then let's use just the curves. So this guy's. Oh, I forgot that I have to do it again because I deleted the whole thing, which was stupid. I could keep it and just create this one. The cool thing is that it's memorized here, so I can just do it and click on create, and that's it. Okay. And then let's expand this one. Modifier guide. Cool. And then let's do those guys. Hey, why do I, oh, okay, there's 6. I was like, why do I have 6 instead of 3? Okay, both sides. So guide, and then you select this guide. Interesting. Still weird. But I think it has to do with the, I don't know, things are getting a little flat too. I believe there's something you can do around here as well, man. It's like, it's not possible. That's just not going to do it because the curves are in the right spots. Maybe going to have to do that mask thing, you know? It's like UV the squares here, export to ZBrush, paint a mask that basically like keeps those three guys in different colors, and then let the whole thing interpolate. I think that's going to be it, because it's definitely working, right? Like it's the curves are in place and they are doing the right thing. The hair itself is not doing the right thing, but those guys are definitely going in and out the right spots. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do, because that's what I had to do for the hair itself to create that perfect split in the middle. And I think that's going to be it. I think with 3 is a great idea. Thanks for that. Because that way I can actually really see where things are now. And I can just like, yeah, paint different masks in here. So I'm going to do this tonight, and I'm going to post whatever I have as a result. And if it works, then I share with you guys. Sweet. Okay, so tomorrow is our last official day, and then we have the reviews coming up on Saturday. If you guys can gather like a little list of stuff that is still missing, you know, it's like stuff that you guys have doubt about it. You see, like XGen, I don't know anything about it, so I'm not gonna be a lot of help. No, I'm basically like a hack when it comes to XGen. But you know, with skin detail and all that stuff, if you guys have any questions, anything you can bring up, let's explore together. You know, it's like, and tonight I'm gonna post the map, so that can be a little help for you guys. And yeah, just let me know, because I want to make sure you guys are getting what you came for, you know. So yeah, good to have you guys. Gonna miss you guys. Every single class, man, you know, it's like you get connected to people, you know, like you get used to seeing the faces, especially you guys who I see every time. You know, it's like you always you know, it's like, and then when the next one starts, it's like, man, yeah, it's like you missed that group, you know. It's not the same when you're interacting on Facebook, but it's been really nice. And the crazy thing is, like, there are 2 of you who are crazy enough to actually buy the class of January again. two of you guys, I mean, like you requested, and I basically what I did, I had some coupons for the people who actually bought the 3-in-1 classes. So basically, like they bought for $800. So to upgrade to the January class, that's $950. They only pay $150 for the difference, right? And then basically what I did, it was the same. You know, it's like I just like, okay, gave the same coupons to 2 of our guys, and was Dimitri and who is this? The second one, man. It's my Brazilian friend. And basically, like I give the same discount, like $150, because that way they can watch the entire thing again and have all the interaction and then the reviews again if they want to. So that's why I was actually charged. Otherwise, I would not charge at all. If it was just like to open a window to watch the thing without asking questions or getting reviews, I was like, oh, just watch it, you know. But it's pretty cool, man. It's like, it's unbelievable that people like can tolerate me for more than a month, which is plenty. But it's really cool at the same time. I feel very honored. So thanks a lot, guys. And it's been a pleasure. And tomorrow, let's see what we can do. I was thinking about like trying to go through all those questions and stuff in terms of like a technical stuff we can try to resolve. And also explore a little bit of the post-processing stuff that I do. You know, it's like for the renders, you know, it's like little effects I use. Like I told you about the plugin I use for Photoshop, but a couple of things that I use in there, you know, it's like just to color correct. And I'm not the best when it comes to color correction. In fact, I'm not the best on anything. It's like I'm competent about doing a bunch of different things, and the final result looks cool, you know. But in terms of being a specialist, I'm not a specialist on anything. I'm just competent about doing multiple things. That's all it is. But what I know, I try to pass to you guys, so you can try to improve on that and eventually like do much better stuff than I'm doing. Some of you guys already kicked my ass, but let's not talk about that. It's almost time to bed. Thanks, guys, and I see you tomorrow. And if I have the time to, you know, like to go and reply to some of the questions on the group, I think I left just like maybe 2 or 3 unanswered. I try to do like every day. And then meanwhile, we're gonna upload the video and then capture those screenshots for everybody to see the maps. Thanks again, and I see you soon.
Bye, Chris.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Chris. See you.
Gonna Gonna try to solve this problem today, man. These braids are driving me crazy. Alrighty, see ya.